Good Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. Browns back on the practice field, getting ready for Sunday's home game against the LA Chargers. Some good news, some concerning news relative to who practiced and who didn't. So David Njoku, Joel Bitonio, Jedrick Wills, Jerome Ford, all no injury status designation, so they're good to go. Kaliki Hudson out, JOK we knew was out. Jordan Hicks has been ruled out. Now, Denzel Ward did return to practice, but that's part of the concussion protocol. He has not been cleared to play yet. He is listed as questionable to play against the Chargers. That obviously concerned. Let's welcome in G. Bush, 92.3 The Fan, the Barbershop, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. So, G. Bush, I like the fact that some of the guys are back. Linebacker concerns me, not going to lie. Hicks and JOK out. That is not ideal against a Chargers team that wants to be physical.
Yeah. J.K. Dobbins, I think, has almost 600 yards on the ground. He had a couple really nice games earlier the year. He's been slowing down a little bit. Yards per carry hasn't been as high, but when you look at it, JOK is to me your second best ball player in terms of playmaking ability. And so he's out. Jordan Hicks, we have not seen him a lot this year, so you're going to see a lot of Diabate. Now, the thing that is kind of encouraging is I thought Diabate flashed a little bit. I thought he showed some things up front. I think Zadarius Smith is playing some of his best football. So Grant Delpit is playing pretty well as well. So, they're going to need one of those type of games, especially at the linebacker position. You're going to need Devin Bush to step up on some of the rundowns. You're going to need Diabate to be a guy that's been physical, and you're going to need some production from Dalvin Tomlinson to put a game together, or a Shelby Harris or Maurice Hurst at the defensive tackle position. And it'd be an awesome game if you can get a guy like Mike Hall Jr., who I thought when you watched the film flashed a lot against the Ravens, was disruptive in the backfield a lot. They couldn't block him up front. Obviously, it's a little difficult to chase down Lamar Jackson. This week they got Justin Herbert. The Chargers are a team that under Harbaugh is going to want to run the football. Lat McConkey is their best receiver, a slot receiver, the young guy out of Georgia. So look, they don't have some of the guys that they've had before. That you usually would be thinking about. They had Mike Williams for a lot of time, a lot of years, and some of those other guys, and that they were able to. And Keenan Allen is another guy. All those guys were individuals who you would think about when you talked about that passing game when Justin Herbert was throwing for about 4,000 yards, a couple years ago. Much different team now, more physical, want to run the football. They don't have the guys on the outside. So it's going to be up to the defensive line and the linebackers, those guys who do show up to get these guys into third and long situations. So now you can use your pass rush and try to get home a little bit.
Yep. The other thing, I wouldn't be surprised if they go to an odd front and maybe put a fifth defensive lineman in there because of their linebacker. We'll see. There's a lot. Jim Schwartz will come up with something because they like to run the football. You are afraid of their run game and their offensive line. You're not as afraid of their receiving core, although I'm with you. Herbert's a pretty good quarterback. Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback, on the difference between the Browns offense with Jameis Winston and what he saw with Deshaun Watson.
I told you I watched that Browns-Ravens game on film right closely on Tuesday. Wow. Like, you talk about refreshing, like watching that offense. I mean, what would the Browns be if they had put Jameis Winston in 3 or 4 weeks ago? What would they be? They have an all-star defense. It's still one of the best in football. Their offense, their attack, their talent is good enough to be better than where they are if Jameis Winston was the starting quarterback. The offense looked totally different, which just tells you that Deshaun Watson was holding them back in every way possible. Simple plays, nothing imaginative or creative. They didn't trust him, I don't think, to see throws down the football field or do anything like that. The offense was wide open with Jameis Winston, let alone he's just a better thrower and a better decision maker than Deshaun Watson. He played really good last week.
And G. Bush, you and I both defended Watson. And the trade, I get it. I get the remade offense. It didn't work. And I can't argue with anything that Chris Sims just said. I agree with him wholeheartedly.
Man, look, there was last week was the first week in which you watched the Cleveland Browns offense and you see the vertical passing attack. You start to see some of the semblances of what they were when Joe Flacco played. You started to see some of the anticipatory throws. We talked to on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We have Sean King on, who breaks it down in film breakdown. And he called me personally when I was sick last week. He said, "Listen, G. Bush, big fella, hey, don't limit Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, he can throw the football. Mind you, guys out there, Jameis Winston threw for 5,000 yards in this league. He's thrown for 4,000 multiple times, other times than 5,000 in this league. And what he told me is, look, when you have a guy coming out of Florida State in Jimbo Fisher's offense, which is a pro style offense where you're doing checks at the line of scrimmage, you're using to throw the ball, and they're running play action. He told me Jameis Winston has always been just a better natural thrower of the football just by the preparation that Jameis Winston had. Let's not forget, Jameis Winston is a number 1 overall pick in this league. Let's not forget that he won the Heisman Trophy, national titles, right? When you look at what his system was in Florida State, it's much more dialed and much more connected to what is more, what the Cleveland Browns do best, which is the run action, the play action, and getting guys open. And so, in college, you had much more of Deshaun Watson doing the RPO one read type stuff. Now, don't get it twisted. Deshaun, did that at the highest level. He won a national championship and was also a great quarterback and did it really well at a high level with the Houston Texans. But the main thing that I'm seeing mostly in what this is, it's the anticipation. When you watch that all 22, he's throwing the ball before guys get out of their breaks. He's anticipating different things. He's reading coverages. Now, the thing about Jameis Winston is he gets a knock for throwing interceptions. But I'll tell you this. We saw the offense with Deshaun Watson, and it was check down Charlie. It was dink and dunk, and he wasn't seeing guys open. He was not seeing the field well. He was not throwing the ball or pushing the ball downfield. And there were 4 or 5 throws that Jameis Winston made against the Baltimore Ravens that we have not seen Deshaun Watson make while he's been here the whole time. So when you look at it, the anticipation, some of the touches on the football, 2 throws to David Njoku right on the money. Not only that, when you got a guy offensively that he knows and your receivers know that if I run my routes strong, if I run my routes, he's going to find me. Look at the spread of the football. Look at it from the Jerry Jeudy to getting receptions to now all of a sudden Cedric Tillman looks like he's a prospect. David Njoku, Elijah Moore looked really good last week. And it's starting to see some of those same things that we saw with Flacco, where all of a sudden some of these guys are flashing now and believing in it. And the thing that, and to put a cherry on top of the sundae, I think one of the things that you'll see with Jameis Winston is this. He's always been a solid leader of men. People may laugh and joke at some of the things he says, but this guy he motivates people. He's a dude that holds people accountable. He's going to be a voice in that huddle, and he gets people to play hard. It's no coincidence this offensive line all of a sudden look like they're competent and they can run the football, and they weren't giving up pressures. Balls coming out on time. Receivers believe that they can catch the football and that they're going to get the ball if they're open. And I'm just going to say this. We talked about the Deshaun Watson, that last half against last year against the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, but Jameis Winston put on a show, and he gave you a comeback win. So I want to see if he put it together 2 weeks in a row. We'll see. We might have a little something here brewing if he can come out here this week and get it done.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it just looked different. You talk about anticipatory throws. Confident. He was confident in what he was seeing, and he had conviction. I see this. I know it's there. I'm going to throw it, and that was what's been missing, in my opinion. This is also kind of interesting. So, 8 teams have gone from 3-6 to the playoffs. 2 of them were last year. The Rams and the Packers. Eagles did it in 2021. Jaguars in 2022. If the Browns defeat the Chargers, they will be 3-6. Currently, the Chargers are 4-3, G. Bush, and they do sit in the 7th and final position in the AFC to make the playoffs. So, it's a big game. I'm not sitting here telling you I think they're going to make the playoffs, but it would be a tiebreaker with somebody who's in a playoff position.
Hey, this thing gets real tricky. It's funny how life comes at you. comes at you quick. A couple of weeks ago, we talking about Shador Sanders or Quinn Ewers, Travis Hunter. You guys were over for Sports4CLE was about to start pivoting to your draft guys.
Yeah, we were.
Give me the draft guys. Get them ready. We're gonna have to do some Cavs, Guardians. Listen, all of a sudden, Jameis Winston come in, throw for 334. You get a win this week, right? Against a team that's last right now when it comes to, like, you know, they're in the playoff. I believe they would be the last team in if the playoffs started today. Now all of a sudden you get a win with them and you got a tiebreaker. The Browns have lost to a lot of NFC teams, not so much in the AFC. You look at it, it's been done before. Right now, it just is kind of a nice little fringe story to talk about. But if they get it done against the Chargers on Sunday, all of a sudden, those guys in the locker rooms are starting to talk about like this. Guys, we got everything we want in front of us. Let's be honest with you. You know, look around. We now are going into the bye, in which now Jameis Winston threw for 334, and he wasn't even getting first-team reps, hadn't played in 2 years. Now, all of a sudden, all that spread stuff and the shotgun stuff that you were doing, slowly but surely, watch the running game. If you watch the tape, watch how many double teams were up front. Watch how all of a sudden now we're running some of those same duo plays, some of the off-tackle plays. Nick Chubb is now looking better and better each and every week. 56 yards. Now, granted, he's not where he needs to be yet, but he's close. He's close. He's starting to see himself. He's starting to feel his body getting back to regular. And you telling me you can't come off a win against the Chargers at home, and now you go into a bye week, which now you can get more stuff that Jameis wants to run. You can even put wrinkles in. Nick Chubb is feeling better about himself. Offensive line is getting better. You might get JOK and Hicks and some of those other guys back. And the bye all of a sudden looks like you're getting it at the right time. And the Browns are now peaking where you want to be, and people are believing. It's funny how those things work in the NFL, man. September, the difference between September and November is a long time. This season is a very long season, and right now, I like what the Browns are serving up if they can get a win. But it has to come with the win coming up Sunday for this to even be valid.
Yep, and then, you know, coming out of the bye, you get the Saints. That's another game you could potentially win. All right, we're going to talk about it. Trade deadline is Tuesday, so it'll be interesting to see. I would imagine the Browns, what they do Sunday kind of figures into what they're thinking relative to the trade deadline. Former general manager of the Jets, Mike Tannenbaum, a trade proposal for the Browns and the Lions. Take a listen.
The Detroit Lions are going to acquire Myles Garrett for 3 first-round picks, Jahmyr Gibbs, and a second-round pick. And the Detroit Lions are going to win the Super Bowl. They are a...
They're going to throw in the Joe Louis fist.
Hey,
they're going to throw the GM building. Like, what else? The bridge, that big bridge to Canada.
Finish the proposal, and everybody said no. Look, they need a pass rusher in the worst way. Aiden Hutchinson may come back. This guy is still young, in the prime of his career. And if I'm Detroit, I can win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs is a good player, but he's replaceable.
3?
Right, so Brad Holmes.
It's really 4 when you think about it, because Gibbs was the first rounder last year.
Brad Holmes, who came from the Rams, the F them picks. Wait, there's going to be, these are going to be low picks, and you're not going to have the ability to get...
3? Yeah. This is the Herschel Walker trade?
Yeah. Why wouldn't they win the Super Bowl with Myles Garrett, with the way this offense is going?
You first
win it without him.
You got the right team. You got the right team, your own player. Go get some Darius Smith and keep your picks. Jahmyr Gibbs is their home run hitter. They're just a team that's based off running the football. Darius Smith will be just fine. You get him for a box of Kool-Aid.
Myles Garrett may be the best player in the NFL, not a quarterback.
G. Bush, I am dead set against trading Myles Garrett. If you give me 3 ones, a 2, and a running back like Jahmyr Gibbs, you at least got me thinking about it. I'm not saying I'd do it. I'd think about it, though.
You know what? We talked about this on UCSS, man, and they were like, what is he thinking about? Is he high or something? And I said, well, look, man, that's what's going to have to – it's going to have to be a trade like that. That's going to need to be taking place for me to even consider that.
Yep.
I want to tell people like this right now. Listen, under those circumstances, you guys have been saying this forever. If it's me, Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb are not going nowhere. I don't care if they got more years on their deal. I don't care if they ain't got no more years on their deal. We gonna figure something out. It's one of them things where these two dudes is untouchable to me, just like Joe Thomas was untouchable. Unless them two dudes come to me and say, you know what, it's been a good ride. We not very good. I want to go somewhere else. I'm not even considering it. So to me, I've always said this: like, if Myles Garrett comes to you and says he wants to go somewhere, that's about the King's ransom that I want. And one of the things that they talked about is this. Okay, it's Jahmyr Gibbs. I get it. I like him. He's a nice back. I get it. But here's the thing. You're talking about Myles Garrett might be a top 5 player at any position. Mm-hmm. You know, can you imagine if you put that person with, say, for instance, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, Dallas is already paying Michael Parsons. Going to have to pay him. They've already paid CeeDee Lamb a boatload of money. They've already gave Dak Prescott the biggest contract. So my thing is this: why would I care about any picks that's going to be in the 20s? Take them picks. But if I got Myles Garrett and Michael Parsons, I think I could single-handedly make sure that you're not throwing the ball. So yeah, that's the ransom I want. It sounds kind of crazy. But to be honest with you, if the Browns gave him like a 4th or a 5th, like back in return from that, I mean, would it be that wild and crazy if that was the pick for Myles Garrett, who is a generational Hall of Fame player and is still in his prime?
No. I mean, again, that kind of trade would be the only one I would even consider for giving up Myles Garrett. So that's what it would take. G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out of this other break. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. Be right back.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with G. Bush from 92.3 The Fan and the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Oh, guys, I was listening yesterday to, I believe the gentleman's name was Mr. Lombardi. And what do you know? Someone who finally agrees that you cannot draft or win on analytics alone. You need to find somebody who fits your system and adapt him to your system. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the better way to go. He also said that you can't win without discipline, structure, and gut reaction. You just have to do that. And, well, guys, I'm still rooting for the Browns. It was fun to watch Sunday. Take care, guys.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. G. Bush, Mike Lombardi, former GM, was on yesterday. And one of the things that he said was, if you're an analytic-driven organization like the Browns are, the analytics told you you should have moved on from Deshaun Watson quicker. You were not paying attention to them. That was in addition to saying what he said relative to, you can't rely strictly on analytics. And again, analytics is data. The question becomes, how do you use the data?
Mm-hmm. I think I think the thing that we don't understand. Well, we get it, but I don't think that the Browns came out and just said it. The analytics, the temperature check, the pulse of the stadium, the pulse of the community, the pulse of the fan base, what the media was seeing, everything that was secondary to the money. That has always been what it is. We didn't like that answer. But, the analytics are what the analytics are. I give people the example all the time. This happened to me. I went and bought a used car. It was fairly new used car. It was very expensive. So therefore, I'm making a monthly payment on it. All of a sudden, check engine light comes on and then the engine blows up. Now, think about it. You say, all right, well, listen, I got to cut bait on this car. I got to figure out something else and go get me another car. Here's the reality of the situation. Yes, you need another car, but here's the point. You're still making that car payment. That payment is going to come due every single month. So whether you got an expensive paperweight in your garage or are you going to go get it fixed? Because that payment is going to come every single month from the bank until you pay it off or do whatever you need to. And it's not really easy to sell a car with no engine. So if you're thinking about it, the analogy holds true. If Deshaun Watson is getting $234 guaranteed $1 million, if you try to cut bait and move on him, it's you can't fund the team with the amount of cap hits that you're going to take from cutting him. So even if he's not playing, right, he's going to be on the roster taking up this money. So the analytics can say, hey, you weren't paying attention to it. But at the time period, what was more important than the analytics was the fact that they're paying him this money and that they are going to see what they have. Always remember this. The Cleveland Browns have operated in this way multiple years. They have always operated in this way. Remember, when they needed to figure out about Baker Mayfield, guess what they did? They played him even when he was hurt. When Deshaun Watson wasn't playing very well, you know what they said? Well, we're going to, he's getting paid all this money. We're going to figure it out. He was injured one year. He got suspended a bunch of games. We didn't expect him to do the first year. The second year he was injured, played 6 games. Oh, we're going to figure out what's going on this year. Now, they lucked up a little bit, and I don't want to say it's lucky for anybody to get injured, right? That's not the point. The point is that piece was taken off the table for them, out of their control. Then they were like, okay, well, let's pivot to something else. And now they are where they are with Jameis Winston. But it was always going to be about the money that was driving this situation. It was never about the analytics because it was just what it was what it was. That was just obvious.
Yeah, and Lombardi did say that. It was about the money. And he said, but they're lying to themselves analytically because if you're basing decisions on analytics, you don't keep playing them. And I get that. This is kind of interesting as well. This is Week 9 ESPN preview of the Browns-Chargers game. Chargers storyline to watch. And listen to this, G. Bush. We're going to say fewer than 200 yards and not mention Deshaun Watson in it. After throwing for fewer than 200 yards in each of his first 4 games this season, Justin Herbert heads to Cleveland on a 3-game stretch of averaging 288 yards per game. Cleveland has allowed 200-plus passing yards 4 times. Browns storyline. Jameis Winston transformed the offense in his first start, 334 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Is his performance sustainable? Sunday's matchup against Chargers, the best defense Cleveland has faced to date, will be telling. LA's defense hasn't allowed more than 13 points, or is allowing 13 points per game. The other thing is, the Chargers have played Patrick Mahomes and a bunch of kind of mediocre quarterbacks. So that I would put that caveat on it. But we've been killing Deshaun Watson for throwing for under 200 yards a game. Justin Herbert went 4 straight without doing it as well.
Yeah, look, they without the first few games, you take a look at who they're playing, and they haven't really played any world beaters. And the thing about it is the offense hasn't been that great. We talked about it in the opening segment where you look at what they had. Traditionally, they've had guys on the outside that can make plays, and have guys in the running back. And they've been more dynamic in years past. This year is more of a different type of skill set that they're looking to run. And to be truthful, it plays into the Browns' hands, especially if you can get Denzel Ward, who may be trending in the right direction of playing. Now you got an opportunity to have your best corner on the field, and see if you can stop the run and get after him. I think this lines up in a nice game for the Cleveland Browns. And watch for Myles Garrett. I think Myles Garrett was hurt more in the beginning of the year, but just like Nick Chubb, I think he's going to do a better job of getting. He was still in the backfield last week, still graded high according to PFF. But this is a week where if you get a team that wants to be physical and you get them in a predictable down and distance, I think this is the week where you might be able to see if Myles Garrett get 2-3 sacks and kind of run it up a little bit, get those sack totals up a little bit and just give them some pressure. And I also think about it like this. The defense is going to be, and they played much with a renewed sense of energy and effort against Lamar Jackson last week. People are going to, people talk about how bad Ravens defense is. Ravens were playing lights out. before they played the Cleveland Browns. They were playing like one of the best teams in the NFL. Lamar Jackson, people talk about him getting another MVP. So the Browns defense is coming off a game where they got some confidence to them. And trust me, when you got a quarterback on the other end of the spectrum where you got Nick Chubb that's trending in the right direction, the offensive line is now all of a sudden getting healthy, and they know that they can put up points in over 200 yards, trust me, those guys are going to play with a little more energy and effort. I think this game being at home, I think this is a game the Browns could be really do something and get a win here, especially given the fact that offense, defense, complementary football looks a lot better given the fact that the offense is doing their thing as well.
G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Appreciate you.
G. Bush, make sure you check him out, 92.3 The Fan. He is host of the Barbershop, 8 until noon on Saturday. You can also catch him Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Monday through Friday from 11 to 1. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, 3 keys to beating the Chargers, film breakdown, video analysis with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. That's straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready to face the LA Chargers here in Cleveland coming up Sunday. 3 keys to beating the Chargers, film breakdown, video analysis. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Lance, we've talked a couple of times during the week on the show. The Browns, somehow the numbers say they have a 10% chance of making the playoffs in the AFC. They have to beat the Chargers. Chargers are currently in 7th spot, a couple of games and a half ahead of them, 2.5 ahead of them. So huge game for the Browns.
Well, this week is one of the biggest cliches we always use as coaches when you say one game at a time, but it truly is. And here's why. The Browns aren't good enough. They found a spark in Jameis Winston, but a part of that was because the offensive line played better and the receivers played better and the defense played better and the special teams played better. And whether that's because of Winston or not, they all played better, and they're going to have to continue to play at a high level and continue to get better. Remember, when you're on film, not only a lot of people have film on Winston over the last couple of years, so they're going to have a plan for Winston. They're going to take away what he does, or try to at least. I still think the Browns need to run the ball better, but I'll tell you what, I think they match up very well. They're 10th in the league in defense, and the Chargers are 4th, but the Chargers have played some quarterbacks besides Mahomes that aren't very good or at a high level, so I think the Browns have a really good chance of winning this game. Obviously, Winston has to continue to play well, but this is a game they can win.
Yeah, and the Chargers' offense is not scoring a lot of points. The defense, as you mentioned, has been really good. All right, so 3 keys to beating the Chargers Sunday. Number 1, it deals with the quarterback, Justin Herbert. Must get Herbert off his spot. So take us through that, what you see and what you mean by that.
Well, first one you're going to see here is just that the Steelers bring a 7-man pressure. He does not have the receivers that he used to. So what I mean by getting him off his spot is play man coverage. And now you're going to see the right tackle, Joe Alden's going to be a great player, just gets beat. And he just gets beat by Watt. So look for them Browns to find matchups. Now, what I mean by getting him off his spot is not allowing him to throw in rhythm. It doesn't really mean throwing on the run. It means if he wants to throw on the run, make him set up. If he wants to set up in the pocket, get him moving outside the pocket. He's very talented. He's got elite arm talent. He's a top 10 quarterback. But like a lot of quarterbacks, he's not as good on the move. So you got to get him off his spot. You got to hit him. You got to challenge his offensive line. There's some struggles interiorly. I think their center can be beat a little bit. The receivers, Ladd McConkey's their top guy. So they got rid of Allen. They got rid of Mike Williams. They got rid of Eckler. So they're in a rebuild on offense. And I think the Browns can take advantage of that with their defense.
Yeah, they do like to run the football. Not a surprise given what we know about the new head coach, Jim Harbaugh. And so number 2, second point of the 3 keys to beating the Chargers that you have is control the power pass. So take us through that and what you mean here.
Well, this really got started. If you watch the left guard, he's going to pull. And when the left guard pulls, there's so many schemes in football, power, counter, pin, and pull, where those guards are getting out and they're moving. So this started with Tom Brady back in his New England days with Gronk and those good tight ends and receivers, where they're going to pull that guard in pass protection. And what that does, it brings those linebackers up. So as you play again, you're going to see those linebackers step up just a little bit. And as they step up, they leave gaping windows behind them, and then they scramble and they don't drop as well because they think it's a run play. So linebackers like to tackle. So this power pass, this is their best pass protection. And what the Browns have to do is they have to make sure that when they get in their drops after checking run, they make sure they locate receivers. And this is what the Saints really struggled with, was finding receivers after they got in their drop. So again, they're going to run a lot of power. They're going to pull the guards. They're going to be physical up front with Jim Harbaugh's offense, and then they're going to run this power pass. And what I mean by power pass, it's not the routes, it's the protection up front. They make it look like a power run game, and then bring those backers up and throw it over top and in front of the safeties.
What have you seen from Herbert? That was a guy that a young guy who was kind of ascending, had some foot issues earlier in the year. What have you seen from him when you looked at him on film?
I watched, they're 4-3. I watched all 7 games. And think about Justin Herbert, he's got elite arm talent. He breaks a couple long runs. He's a really good athlete. He can make all the throws inside, outside the pocket. So all those measurables that people talk about, he can make all the throws. I really, truly believe that the Chargers are in somewhat of a offensive scheme issue like the Browns are. Obviously, Hardball wants to run power, counter, getting 12 and 13 personnel. They're not doing that as much, nor should they with the talent of Justin Herbert. However, how you marry those two, they're doing a little bit better than the Browns did early in the season, in my opinion. But they still want to rely on the run game, and they don't want to rely on a quarterback. And that's always kind of been Harbaugh's thing, where he's going to rely on the run game and physicality. So he's been very good. He can make all the throws. He just hasn't had to make them as much because of what they want to do offensively. And he doesn't have the skill players he's had in the past either.
So they did get J.K. Dobbins, who started off quickly and has tailed off. What have you seen from Dobbins when you watch the Chargers?
Well, it's funny going into the season. So that was my biggest question mark when you look around the AFC. They brought in Dobbins, who's had struggle with injuries, and they brought in Gus the Bus, who I just love down in the red zone. But both of those guys, Edwards is getting towards the end of his career, and Dobbins has had such injury issues. However, when Dobbins is healthy, he's a really good back. He's good in pass protection. He's a 3-down back. He can catch the ball from the running back position and split out. Like I said, he's really good in pass protection. I think he's really good in this gap scheme that Harbaugh wants to get to. Again, the thing about Harbaugh, it's not really the schemes, it's the style. They want to be physical in everything they do, and Dobbins fits that. For Dobbins, it's all been about health. He's healthy. He's a good running back.
All right, the third of the 3 keys to beating the Chargers: must block, exotic, minter blitzes, and handle pressure. So take us through that, what we see here.
Well, you're going to see right here, you're going to see just a 5-man pressure here. So a 5-man pressure, but what he does, when it starts over, you're going to see the linebacker coming up, right? So let's go on this one. This is what I'm breaking down. So this is the top of the screen. You're going to see a twist by the Chargers. Now, as we go back to this first one, basically what Minter does, he's going to walk up the linebacker who you see blitzing late. That forces the left guard to stay there. What that really does is it gives you 5 for 5 up front, which means Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack have one-on-ones. Now they're going to overload a side, and they're going to twist. And what they do is they cover the center, and the center is late helping on the twist. So Jesse Minter, one of the things you have to do is that he likes these exotic blitzes, 4 over 3, 3 over 2, where he's going to align and leave gaps open. He's going to show linebackers at the line of scrimmage, but then really only bring 4 or 5. So the Browns have to figure out who they're blocking. They're going to look like they're bringing 6 or 7 on almost every play, especially on 3rd down. So the first key would be to stay out of 3rd down and long. Second key would be simplify your protection, maybe add a 6th or 7th offensive lineman or running back or tight end, and try to max protect a little bit. But you can't leave Bosa and you can't leave Mack one-on-one all game and expect to have success.
Yeah, and again, the Browns have had some issues picking up some of those twists and those stunts, and not as much last week. And maybe it's getting Teller back, having Conklin another week, and having Jones at left tackle. We'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot to do with continuity, and they really have struggled with twists and stunts, turning their shoulders. And when I watched the Raiders game, the Raiders really struggled with the guards turning their shoulder on the twist. And once you turn your shoulders and they're not parallel to the line of scrimmage, you cannot get back on these NFL guys. And these NFL guys just get by you. So what the Browns have to do up front is you have to see their numbers. As a quarterback, I want to see all my offensive linemen's numbers if I was to look down. Why? That tells me their shoulders are square and they're not giving up gaps, or they're not opening the door, we like to say, for a pass rusher. So their issues with twists and stunts have been who they have. And then fundamentally, how do they block it? So those are things that are coached, and those are things that you get better when you get your veterans back.
The other thing is they still haven't had, I know people were back, but it's 5 different guys again that were playing on the line. And you need some of that continuity because of what you're saying, picking up and communication and those kind of things.
Well, and everybody always thinks you have a week. In the NFL, obviously, there's a lot more meeting time. There's a lot more time on the field with walkthroughs. But really, in the NFL, especially since collective bargaining, there's really only a few days that you're out there. And there's never any days you're heavy. So really, there's only a couple days where you're on the field going through with live bullets and seeing those stunts and seeing those blitzes. You really want to get all that work in during training camp, and they didn't have these guys during training camp. So, yeah, there's some issues with communication. Hopefully getting Conklin, getting Jones over at the left tackle, getting Teller back inside, being more stout, helping with the run game physicality. But I think once they get together and they do this, they'll be fine. And again, it's knowing who you have first and making sure fundamentally your shoulders stay square, and then, being stout there so your quarterback can have some time to throw the football.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out, cleveland.com, as well as pages of the Plain Deal are always really good. Film breakdown, video analysis of the NFL, and we always have these keys to the game for the Browns game. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. The NFL trade deadline is Tuesday. Things creeping up after this week's game. Browns are on a bye. Trade deadline is Tuesday. ESPN's national NFL reporter, Jeremy Fowler, what he's hearing about the Browns' defensive end, Zadarius Smith.
Let's start with Zadarius Smith, Christine, Cleveland Browns pass rusher. He is a hot name right now. The Detroit Lions desperately need a pass rusher after injuries. They could be in the mix here. Teams I've talked to believe the Browns want a really good day 3 pick for Smith, so maybe a 4th rounder or so would probably get it done. But I'm told the Browns are open to keeping him too because they have him under contract for 2 years, and he's been playing well for them. So still a name to watch, could be moved at the deadline.
With that, let's welcome in Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report, Barking Browns podcast. Jacob, I think that last part of it, he's under contract for next year. If they, in fact, do trade Zadarius Smith, it might be an indication they think it's going to be kind of a little bit of a retooling, not a full rebuild, but a step back for next season. If they keep him, they either didn't get what they like or they think they're going back after it next season.
Yeah, you got to think too that they've already got 10 draft picks. Once they get those comp picks coming up, they're projected to have 10 draft picks. So yeah, if you're looking even just at a quick retool sort of thing, you've got a lot of draft picks to kind of do that already. So it almost makes me think of like the Amari Cooper situation, where I don't think they were necessarily going out shopping Amari Cooper, but the Bills called and they wanted to give him a day 2 pick for him, and they're like, well, this guy's not even, this guy's not even going to be under contract next year. That makes it pretty easy. But I think the Browns are in a great spot to, kind of like you said, if they don't get what they want, they don't need to pull the trigger on this. He's going to be here next year. I think it all comes down to whether or not they win on Sunday. I think maybe if they lose, there may be a good chance that they just go ahead and make that move.
All right, former NFL offensive lineman Brian Baldinger, video breakdown and analysis of Jameis Winston's game-winning drive against the Ravens.
2:07 to go in the game, down 24-23. You got to protect. Here we go, nice, easy egg toss right here. Ooh, beautiful shot to Tillman for 12 yards. Then you get this up here. How about Judy on a comeback? All right, 2nd and 10. Here comes the overload right here. They're coming right at Jameis. The comeback, Judy, perfect throw. All right, 1st down. Stretches out over the yard marker. 3rd and 7, 7-man pressure. Eddie Jackson, the safety, up on the line. Roquan up on the line. Here, they're all up. Van Noy, Matabike, they're all there. All right, can Jameis get protection? Here he comes. Look at how quick he gets rid of the ball. They got a free hitter coming right at him. Perfect throw on the outside to Elijah Moore for a 1st down. All right, then you get this. What is this coverage that the Ravens are in? All right, 1:04 to go in the game. You get said Tillman right here against Eddie Jackson. Like, I don't know what's going on. There's no free safety, I guess. Just throw it over the top. But in order to do that and throw the game winner, you got to protect.
And Jacob, we had talked a couple of times. The biggest criticism I had about Deshaun Watson, there were 3 instances where he had the ball in his hands at the end of the game to win a game, and he didn't get it done. Now, we didn't show, Brian Baldinger didn't show the interception that was dropped by Kyle Hamilton. Again, bad throw, but bottom line, ball in his hands, end of the game, Winston beat the Ravens, one of the best teams in the NFL.
I told you last week on this show that I thought they were playing like the best team in the NFL, like going into that game. That's why I was a little bit terrified by it. I love watching his breakdowns, by the way. I just think the way he articulates things are really funny and enjoyable. But one of those plays that really stands out to me is the free rusher play that he throws to Elijah Moore there, where there's a guy coming, free. He's not getting blocked. Nobody's there to pick him up. I've seen that play a million times this year, end in a sack. And Jameis Winston had the 2nd quickest time to throw this week, behind only Tua, like 2.44 seconds. I think it's something like that. He understood, what's going on. Like, hey, in this biggest moment, yeah, I need to come up big. I need to make these plays, but I've got an offensive line that's kind of struggling. Wyatt Teller's knocking some rust off. DeJuan's never played left tackle in the NFL. It's been several years since he's played it at all. And, he understood, get this, get back, make my read, throw the ball, deliver it, be on time, just do my job, and we'll execute. And they ended up doing it. It was just a lot of fun. I had no doubt. I really felt confident in that final drive, and then to actually see him take that bomb after almost throwing a pick was just glorious.
And you know what? The difference was noticeable. You came out with the time to throw. You could see he just processed it quicker, understood it better. It was confident. It was on time. It was, for the most part, there were 3 or 4 throws that weren't, but on target as well.
And I think that, like, what we kind of talked about with going into that game and kind of talking about Jameis in general throughout this year was, he's going to give his guys a chance to make a play. And there's no better definition. Like, if you're like, what do you mean he's just give your guy a chance? Just let him go make a play. Go watch that David Njoku touchdown. Like, that's not a playground backfield. Like, that's not a textbook throw to this guy. That's understanding that you have a freaky athlete at the position in a mismatch situation up the seam, that he believes in his guy. And he says, I don't have a wide open guy for a touchdown here. I don't have a 1st down, but I have a guy that I believe in. There's some trust there, and I understand his skill set. I'm just going to give him a chance to make his money and go make a play. And he was doing that more often than not. And his wide receivers, as tight end, they all said, they all clearly appreciated the opportunities, and they made those plays, and they just executed the offense, and it worked.
All right, so this is from CBS Sports. It's kind of interesting. Ranking the NFL's top 5 scariest offensive players. Number 1, Derrick Henry, who the Browns, minus that long run, did a nice job of containing. Number 2, Trent Williams, offensive lineman. Number 3, Penei Sewell, offensive lineman. Number 4, Nick Chubb of the Browns, ahead of DK Metcalf for the Seahawks. When healthy, Chubb is a devastating runner who had a knack for breaking a game open with a long run, 5.2 yards per carry, tied with Browns legend Jim Brown for the 7th highest in NFL history. You can kind of see the progression. Chubb is getting to look more and more like Nick Chubb, and I would expect that continues the more weeks he plays.
Yeah, I caught myself a couple of times last week just saying, "Nope, there's Nick Chubb doing Nick Chubb things." Like it started to really look like Nick Chubb, and I mean, he got a pretty good workload. He had 16 carries last week. Like that's a pretty good for a guy that's only played one other game in 13 months. And yeah, he's getting more and more opportunities. I know they kind of talked about there was a play they almost broke open where Wyatt Teller was kind of maybe a split too late in his pool, the kind of some of that pin pull stuff that they like to do, and you could just tell that Teller was kind of trying to shake off some of that rust himself. But, you know, there's been a couple of times where Chubb's kind of tripped over his own feet or his offensive lineman where you're just like, give him about a week or two more. And he's going to, he showed some of that speed. He got like in the open field, like one play and you know, shot up the field, had like a 12-yard run, something of that nature. I'm really excited to see if he can get in the open field this week because it looks like that zip is back in his legs. His speed is coming back, and he's been pushing the pile, just doing what Nick Chubb does. And I'm really excited because I think I have a good feeling this week that this could be the chance that we really see him be himself again.
And again, the Chargers' pass defense has been pretty good. Run defense has not been as good. This is kind of interesting as well. This is defenses with the highest percentage of plays that go for negative or 0 yards. Number 1, the Texans. So this was before last night when they lost to the Jets. Broncos are 2, Titans 3, Browns are 4, ahead of the Vikings, 49ers, Eagles, and Ravens. Almost 38% of their plays have been for 0 or negative yardage. Again, the more that you've gotten into it, the defense has cut down on some of the big plays they've allowed, and it helps. You know, look at how they played against the Ravens. Ravens, probably one of the better offensive teams in the league, and we're playing well. You get some competent offensive play, and helps the defense.
Yeah, I can't think of a game this year where the defense hasn't at least started well. Obviously, they may give up some points in the first half and some things like that, but they've always looked competent out there to begin the games, and it always seems like things just kind of wear on them, and that's where they kind of go downhill. But you know, those last couple of games coming into this past week, they had been really good. They just got absolutely no help. I mean, you think about the fact that they held the Cincinnati Bengals to 14 offensive points, and I know the Bengals struggled a little bit against the Eagles, but they had come into that game pretty hot. Like Joe Burrow has been outscoring a lot of people because his defense isn't very good. So like even when they're not getting complimentary football from their offense, they've really done a great job. And I think they continue to be aggressive, but I also just think that the fundamentals and the tackling and some of the things that they needed to clean up, they've cleaned up. And I think Jim Schwartz has finally thrown some of those change-ups in there. We've seen a couple of games where he's played a ton of zone coverage, and it worked really well because that's just what was dictated based on the offense he was going up against. And so where maybe in the beginning of the year we got a little frustrated that we were missing too many tackles or being way too aggressive and giving up some of those things, he's made some changes, been a little bit less predictable, and I think that defense has really responded, and that's with multiple really good players hurt. So, coming out of this bye week especially, I think it'll be interesting to see how the defense fares.
All right, so this is interesting as well. You know, we've talked about Cedric Tillman, Jerry Jeudy. Take a look at this. Elijah Moore had an 81.82% separation rate in Week 8, 5th highest in the NFL. Separation percentage measures how often the receiver beats the coverage to get open rather than benefiting from a defense more focused on limiting yards after the catch or stopping them short of the first down. What have you seen from Elijah Moore?
I'm really happy. Elijah Moore was a big draft crush of mine a couple of years ago, and I was very adamant about the trade last year being a really good move for the Browns, and then things just kind of didn't work out. Some injuries and some poor quarterback play this year, but exactly what you saw in college at Ole Miss and some of the things you've seen from him, like in training camp and practice and things, he just is such a natural separator. Like, he's got such a great combination of speed and route running that he puts together to just leave guys just totally confused about where he's going. He can put his foot in the ground and change direction at the drop of a hat, and just, you think he's going on some of those out routes and comeback routes that we've seen. That he did one against Kyle Hamilton this past week where he kind of went inside, slammed the brakes on, and went back outside, and he had a ridiculous amount of separation. It's probably one of the best routes I've seen a Browns wide receiver run this year. And I just think his ability to his body control and his ability to change the direction and just leave guys guessing and trying to figure out where he's going, because he just can change that so quickly. And then with the ball in his hands, he can kind of make people miss and get some extra yardage. And he's cleaned up the drops. Like, he had some early drops in this season with Deshaun Watson and stuff. And I don't think they had any drops at all as a team last week, which was really awesome to see. But Elijah Moore, he's starting to come into his own as a second-round draft pick.
Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report, as well as the Barking Browns podcast. And now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Browns-Chargers matchup. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones. Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones. Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s, $10 each. 10 times multipliers, 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report and the Barking Browns podcast. Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback, talked about the matchup that the Browns have, Browns-Chargers, coming up Sunday.
This is a tough game. We know that. This is two defenses. It's two teams that got a similar style. In-your-face defense. They're going to bring it, right? And on offense, they want to run the football and then take some shots down the field. That's really what they both want to do. I think Cleveland will do it a little bit better here. The reason I'm going to take Cleveland is really just because I feel like they got a few more weapons on offense. I like their offensive system a little bit more than the Chargers. The Chargers offense, they don't have anybody that scares you right now. Their big play guy is Ladd McConkey. He's doing good, but I don't think that's going to be consistently relied on in this game. It's just too much work on that side of the ball. I'm going Browns 24-17, Michael.
And Jacob, it's kind of interesting. This is a team that doesn't score a lot, being the Chargers, or hasn't scored a lot. They do have Justin Herbert. That's a guy you got to be concerned about. But again, yeah, I get the thought that they are similar.
Yeah, they both like to play kind of physical in-your-face defense. Like, I was having a chat earlier with Casey Kinnaman, kind of talked about that. Like, the Chargers want to be really, really physical, and the Browns kind of do too, when it comes to defense. And it's very interesting. I think, the trenches is where this game's really going to be settled. How does the Browns offensive line do, a struggling offensive line that had a really good week against Baltimore? They're going up against a very good defensive line, Khalil Mack, and they've got 3 or 4 pass rushers that are pretty good, including Bud Dupree, who's playing really well as their situational pass rusher. And, it'll be how do the Browns handle the pressure in the passing game? Can it complement the run game? Can Nick Chubb get going? It's just, and I think on the other side, can the Browns pressure? That's a good offensive line. That is a very good offensive line for the Chargers. Can they get to Justin Herbert? Yeah, he doesn't have a ton of weapons. Ladd McConkey's probably the best option he's got out there. Quentin Johnston, the former first-round pick, has kind of been very inconsistent in his first couple of years with the Chargers. And so if you let Herbert sit back there, though, and get time to throw the football, he's a very good quarterback. So, can the Browns get pressure, and can they protect Jameis Winston? I think in the end, both the battle in the trenches on both sides are going to be the biggest kind of deciding factor in this game.
Yeah, along those lines, PFF NFL Week 9 storylines for the Browns. Storyline: Can Jameis Winston Browns repeat their Week 8 victory? Winston stepped in, outdueled Lamar Jackson, producing 74.9 PFF passing grade. Team's first game having scored more than 20 points. That may have lit a fire under the Browns' offense, and which has been declared dead for weeks. That's a PFF. So, again, the interesting thing was when you look at it, it looked completely different. The offense looked completely different. And the line looked better. The receivers looked better. And again, I'm a guy that defended Watson. If you go back and trace it, a lot of it comes back to quarterback play.
Yeah, and some people were talking about, well, there was the change with play callers with Ken Dorsey calling the plays in this game. That was the same schemes and plays. Maybe the sequencing was different with Dorsey, but it wasn't like a night and day 180 total change on the concepts and plays they were running. There were people out there saying that no quarterback could succeed in what the Browns were doing and with that wide receiver core and the supporting cast and all that stuff. And we got shown flat out that's not true. And I think Kevin Stefanski took it upon himself when he gave up play calling to be more of a CEO, to try to clean up those pre-snap penalties. I don't remember any illegal shifts and illegal formations in this game. There was a couple false starts from Wyatt Tellers and things like that, but those like just embarrassing penalties about not knowing where to be, when to be, and sort of things like that. I think Kevin Stefanski took it on himself to make sure to clean those things up so that he could put his new quarterback and his offense in a whole in the best position to succeed. And his quarterback just did his job. Make his read, throw the ball, get it out quickly when they're bringing pressure, give his guys a chance, play action, run the football. And I don't think it was this total night and day difference with scheme. I think they just went out there and they executed and did their job.
So this also from that same article, PFF Week 9 matchups to watch, and it's along the lines of what we talked about in the trenches. Browns right tackle Jack Conklin versus Chargers edge rusher Joey Bosa. Poor pass protection has been the bane of the Browns offense for most of the season when Conklin was missing from the lineup. The group has since taken strides since his return since Week 6. Cleveland, a sizable drop in overall pressure surrendered and a rise in pass block efficiency rating. The other thing I would say, a lot of people were critical of Wyatt Teller. Remember, Teller came right off the IR and went right into a game. Usually they give him a week buffer, and the Browns just didn't feel like that was Teller gave him the best opportunity to have good line play. So I get what people are saying about Teller. I would expect a significant improvement in the false starts and all that this week with Teller.
Yeah, and I was going to say just, there were some penalties and some things, but I still didn't think he was bad. I think he just kind of was a little off on a few plays. And like you said, man, he sat out a month and then was like, let's go up against some really good interior defensive linemen in the Ravens and just figure it out while you're out there because you give us the best chance to win. And, he went out there and I think he did an admirable job. I expect him to be a lot better. But right now, I think Jack Conklin's your best offensive lineman consistently. He really has cleaned up a lot of the pass protection issues that they've got going on there. But he's going up against a much bigger test this week. Joey Bosa, man, that's one of the premier pass rushers, in the league right now. If he can do what he's been doing the last couple of weeks, 6 pressures and no sacks this year, sign me up for that. If he can keep Joey Bosa from sacking Jameis Winston, I feel really good about it. I just think that offensive line kind of getting some cohesion in the interior with Wyatt Teller back multiple weeks and having the same right tackle for multiple weeks and kind of getting that same combination. I'm very interested to see who plays on the left side, but I really like what Jack Conklin's given you, and it gave you the freedom to try DeJuan Jones at left tackle.
Yeah, and the other thing is, remember, they have Khalil Mack as well. So they have a couple of guys that can get after the quarterback, as we've said, similar to the Browns. All right, before I let you go, this one has me scratching my head. I'll get your reaction to it. Teams that should be trading for Anthony Richardson after his benching by the Colts. This is from the Bleacher Report. Browns, there can be a case made that the young Richardson with just 10 NFL starts has a higher ceiling than some of the prospects in the 2024 draft class. Big arm could be honed with the vision of offense by Kevin Stefanski that he ran before Watson came to town. Putting him under center, allowing him to launch deep balls off play action could be a way to cut down on the decision-making burden and develop him as a passer. Man, I don't know about that one. I am not in on that one at this point in time.
No, I'm good. The thing about it with him is he's a very toolsy player, right? Like a guy that wasn't refined as a passer or anything like that. And you're like, well, but he brings a really high floor as a runner. Well, when he runs, he gets hurt. And then you've got the issue of him subbing himself out in a crucial moment because he was tired and his conditioning wasn't good enough. Like, you don't think the Browns have enough drama around the quarterback position trying to figure out what's going on with Deshaun Watson in 2025 and beyond? Like, I understand he's got alien level physical characteristics. You shouldn't be able to throw the ball as deep as he can while also being that fast and that strong and everything. But it's like, he's wildly inaccurate right now, and you just can't even lean on his running because he gets himself hurt when he does it. And it's just, I understand the kind of the why you would want to take a flyer on a guy like this, but by the time you take this flyer, it's going to be next year. He's already going to be on year 3. So you're already trying to talk about 5th-year option and talking about extending him and stuff like that before you ever even really have him on the field. And I have no idea if it's a year, 2 years before he's ready to go. And then you're already talking about being on the last year of his deal. I'm out on that one.
Jacob Roach, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out. The Orange and Brown Report. He also co-hosts the Barking Browns podcast. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you back here Monday at 4 talking Browns and Chargers. We'll see you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.